Hello, welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living Victoria. My name is Carrie Hunter and I'm the Senior Minister at the Center. It's lovely to see you here today. And if you ever want to drop in person, we are at 380 Cook Street in the Cook Street Village Activity Center. And our meditation service begins at 10:30 and our celebration service starts at 11. We would just love to welcome you there in person if you'd like to drop in someday. Today my talk is called Imagination, the Immaculate Conception. I was talking last week about imagination a fair bit, and as I was thinking about it this week and thinking about my title, which I chose more than a month ago now, I thought, Immaculate Conception is often the thing that we hear about during the Christmas season, about Mary and the virgin birth. And I'm not going to get into that today. However, what I was thinking about when I chose that title was that we know that in this teaching, when we have a powerful thought and we're focused upon that thought, it kind of plants a seed out there in the invisible. And then that seed sprouts and starts to grow. As long as we don't remove our focus and our passion from it, our feeling nature. And it grows and grows until it materializes, until it goes from the invisible, which was thought, into, this physical world in front of us. And so I looked at that as being an immaculate conception, that it was our thought that planted the seed. And as I was thinking about this, I was going through a file of poems that I have, and I was looking for one that my daughter had sent me that had absolutely nothing to do with today's talk, and came across a poem that I wrote, 30 years ago as a student. And it was published in the Science of Mind magazine, and it was called The Immaculate Conception. And I read it. I did send it out to this week in my Soul Prince message that goes out every day. But a lot of people don't see that, and so I thought that I would read it today because it is relevant. The Immaculate Conception. The dream lay deep inside, not quite sleeping, dormant, unexpressed, unshared, thoughts unspoken, disconnected from passion, closed off, carefully guarded, locked in an old trunk and stuffed in an attic, too soon to expose it to the light of day. What's in your voice, or rather, what's in your heart? A voice asked, as if so easy to reveal. It was the way it said heart that began the stirring. Gently, the unspoken rose up within, searching for sunlight and a fertile place to grow. A speck within the womb, so small, insignificant, yet so filled with promise, and passion stirred. Like a wee babe starting to grow, it became real, and there was certainty that all eternity was connecting to its light. It reached out to stroke the face of God, knowing that connection with the divine breathed life into form. It's a quiet thing, this dream come true, no longer hidden, but not quite formed. Yet the voice in the stillness shouts, "You cannot separate from me. The dream is now eternal." It's made manifest by spirit with a point of light on fertile seed. And the world holds its breath in wonder at another immaculate conception. And that's a sort of a poetic way of describing how our thoughts do create our reality. And another miracle is born each time that we use that process. We might call it a miracle, but it's just the normal way that things work. As my friend Jennifer says, Jennifer Tennant, who is minister at our center, oh, how usual. I always laugh at that, but it really is, oh, how usual. It's something where when we talk about miracles, it's something that is normal. We need to get used to that it's normal. It's not something extraordinary. It's something that we're all capable of creating with perfect thought and perfect mind and perfect feeling and belief around it. And the thing is that we need to understand that, oh, well, if we say, well, that's maybe too big to ask for, or that's kind of small, there is no big and no small in the mind of God. Everything is equal. And also, no one has more of that power, that creative power within. No one has more of it than you do. All of us are born with the same amount of it. And when I think about birth and babies, I believe that we are all born knowing. I believe that we are born remembering God because we're so close to the other side still. I believe that we know our power. We know our strength. We know what this is all about. And then we spend a few years having it all unraveled by well-meaning people who just have forgotten the truth about who they are, forgotten that they are spirit having a human experience. And I was thinking again today about the little girl in kindergarten who was madly scribbling with all kinds of colors on a piece of paper. And the kindergarten teacher asked her, what is it that you're drawing? And the little girl said, it's a picture of God. And the kindergarten teacher said, oh, no one knows what God looks like. And without missing a beat, the little girl said, well, they will when I'm finished. And don't you just love that? I love that. The confidence. Would that we could all have that amount of confidence, that we knew what God looked like. Actually, God looks like every one of us because we're all expressions of the divine. But that we could have that confidence in that power and powerfully express it. And the thing is that so often as we're growing up, we're told, well, I know I was told as a little girl, if I wanted to talk about God, don't talk about such foolishness, and certainly don't talk about it to the neighbors. What would they think? It was what I grew up with. And at the same time, I still always had this feeling that this power was there. Only I didn't understand how it really worked. And I was always seeking a God I could understand until the very first Sunday that I walked into a Science of Mind church, Center for Spiritual Living in Port Moody, BC, with Reverend Darlene Chase as the minister. And I just walked through the door and I knew that that was the place I was going to remember what I had forgotten. It was the place I was going to learn the truth about God. No, I didn't learn it overnight. It sounded very strange to me in the beginning, but I just came to love it. And I've continued to love it. I love it more each day. And the thing is that, we have to remember that everything is possible. I mean, right, I might not be an astronaut if I want to be, but the things that, that just are normal in our lives, the things that make our lives pleasant and comfortable, and prayers for other people, prayers for ourselves, all of those things are possible when we put our feeling nature and our beliefs behind them. And so it's really a reminder of that today, that as we're born open channels of God, of creativity that can accomplish anything and everything, except that we forget that that's possible because we've just had it drilled out of us. Picasso said, we don't grow into creativity, we grow out of it. From the time we're born, we grow out of it. And what a shame that is. There are some children who do not forget. And, for many years, usually it's around the age of 5, but I know of one child, one little boy who, until he was 11, was just totally, totally in alignment with God and could tell you everything that was possible through God. And I won't get into all of that today either. I mean, that's a subject for another talk one day. But the thing that we need to remember is that, we just don't have to give up. We don't have to think that it's impossible now because we're adults or because we're older. This creativity doesn't go away. It's always there. It's that we start to deny it because we have been told that we're not good enough. We're not talented enough. Whatever the reason might be. And then we own that kind of thing as our stories. And that's just not the truth at all. And so it's really important that we remember that everything is possible, that we remember our own potential, and that we think about our potential, and we dream about it, and we imagine what it is that we want to do. As I said last week, imagination is seeing a big picture of what we want. And as little kids, we did that. If you watch little children today playing in a sandbox or just playing up around their yard or in the house even, it's always like, well, let's pretend this or let's pretend that. Their imaginations are just amazing as they pretend whatever it is going to happen in their lives right then and there. And they're often daydreaming and thinking about things that they want to create. And then that gets cut right off. And it is such a tragic thing when it does. But there are some individuals who will just not accept this. There's some individuals who will buck the system, as we're fond of saying. They're going to be rebels in a way. And as I was thinking about this week, I was thinking about Elvis Presley. When he was a teenager in high school, he was in the school choir, and he got tossed out of the choir because he didn't sing the way the choir master wanted him to sing. He wanted him to sing like the other kids, and Elvis was not about that at all, as you can probably guess. And I was thinking, what if he went home to his mother and said, the choir master kicked me out because he doesn't like the way I sing. And what if his mother said, Elvis, 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 what on earth am I going to do with you? When are you going to learn to take direction? When are you going to listen to the choir master? When are you going to do it his way? And when are you going to play the guitar the way it's supposed to be played? And when are you going to stop gyrating your hips? For goodness sake, what if he had listened to that kind of story? What if his mother had been like that to him? A legend might have been lost. Someone who started a whole new kind of music. Yes, rock and roll was around then, but Elvis was the king. And, and if you have seen the movie Elvis, it's extraordinary. It's not about his music so much as it's about his life. It really gave me some insight into what he had gone through as a musician. I had no idea. Anyway, I'm kind of digressing here. But there are others, I always think about the Wright brothers with something like this, Wilbur and Orville, and, making wings and then walking out to the edge of a cliff and jumping off. Now, if they'd been walking past my house when I was a kid, my mother would have said, there go those crazy Wright brothers again. One of these days they're just going to jump off that cliff and kill themselves. Instead of look at the imagination of those boys. They won't give up. They won't quit. They're convinced they're going to fly. And of course, they did. So, we have to perhaps tone things down a little bit when we're thinking about these things. Admire the creativity, admire the courage that it took for people to be different, to challenge all of the odds. I absolutely love to hear stories like this. And I read a story the other day about a young or a girl. She was 8 years old. I believe it was in 1923. And her name was Gillian Lynn. And she was a fidgety kid in school. I was fidgety. But I guess she was quite extreme. And her mother took her to a doctor. This was 1923, because she just didn't know what to do, and the teachers were complaining. And so the doctor put Jillian into a side room, and there was some music playing. She could look at a magazine or a book. And he took her mother into another room, and they talked. And the mother told him of all of the problems she was having with Jillian, that her teachers were complaining, and she simply didn't know what to do. And she wondered if perhaps there was a drug that might help. And the doctor listened very carefully, and then he said, your daughter's been alone now for a while in the other room. Let's just peek in the door and see what she's doing. He wondered how squirmy she really was. Anyway, they did that, and she was dancing. She was dancing to the music. And he said, your daughter is longing to dance. He said, put her in a dance class. He didn't say I'm going to drug her or, you know, or make her sit still. Do everything. I mean, my mother used to say, I'll give you a nickel if you can sit still for 15 minutes and not talk. um, but this doctor obviously had some experience with this, but he also had a lot of wisdom. So Jillian's mom put her in dance class, and when she was 18, she was accepted into Sadler's Wells Ballet, and then into the Royal Academy, and where she became a prima ballerina. She was extraordinary. She had an amazing career. And when she was 83 years old, she choreographed Cats on Broadway. And when she was 85, she did the choreography for the 25th anniversary of Phantom of the Opera, the little girl who couldn't keep still in class. We need to take another look at children today who are kind of fidgety and can't keep still. Now, the thing is, I admit there are some children who need medication. There are adults who need medication. Um, God is in everything. God is in the medication. But we need to really look closely to see exactly what is going on. What is it that child really wanted to do? Turns out I really wanted to dance too. Um, I was able to take lessons for a year, and then my teacher moved away. And after that, to get to class was too far and too expensive for my family. But I used to just dance on my own. I would dance in the basement and sing. Good thing I'm not doing that today. But the dance was always important to me, and I absolutely love watching ballet. Um, to me, it's a thrilling thing. So when I think about Jillian, I think, what if her mother had not taken her to that doctor? What if that doctor had not been so wise? Dr. Holmes, uh, when he wrote the first Science of Mind textbook in 1926, it was very intellectual. Many of his books are very intellectual. They deal with intellect rather than with the heart. And they introduce us to a new way of thinking, a new way of doing things. It's ancient wisdom. It's nothing new. Ancient wisdom, but it's called new thought. And we are immersed in that in our teaching today, and we love it. The thing is that as Ernest Holm went along, you could see how his work moved from head to heart. And when it gets into the heart, everything shifts. That's when he started writing beautiful poetry, beautiful meditations. That's when things started to change in the way that he taught. As he got older, he was much, much more heart-centered than he was earlier on in his career. And he came to teach us that everything comes from the heart. That is that feeling nature, that love is what begins the creative process. And I'm thinking, can we still do this today? Can we shift today? Can we start doing the things we wanted to do as little children that were so creative that we were stopped from doing? And I was reading, as life would have it, I was reading about ages, and I'm fond of saying that age is just a number. It doesn't really matter how old we might be; it's only a number. But I was reading that the average age or average life expectancy for a woman used to be 83, or rather 85, and for a man 81. And that has shifted now. It has shifted to 120 for men and between 120 and 150 for women. Wow. Just think about that. Look at your age right now, whatever it happens to be. What if you were only 1/3 of the way through your life, or only halfway through and you happen to be 75? Imagine. I mean, this is where the imagination has to come into play. So many people think, oh, if I'm that age, I better just curl up and get ready to die. There's not much I can do anymore. I'm not of much use anymore. Balderdash, as the British used to say. I don't know if they even use that expression still. But the thing is, we're the ones who limit ourselves. We're the ones who shut ourselves down. And it is not the right thing for us to do, in my mind. You know, I mean, I can remember thinking about a year ago, I would love to learn to play piano and play it well. I would love to learn to play classical piano really well. Well, typically that means grade 12. That would be roughly 12 years of studies. And I thought, well, I'm getting kind of old for that, you know. Would I be able to do it? Are there other things I would rather do? This was a few years ago. Now I just look and think, you know, I have this whole list of things that I want to accomplish yet. And I've got a long time ahead to do it. And I believe that that's true. And so I'm challenging you to believe it as well. I'm challenging you to sit down and say, okay, if I knew that I had another 50 years to live or 70 years, whatever it happened to be, what would I do? What would I want to accomplish? You know, somebody came up to me after service today in tears, saying that she knew, she had the vision of what she wanted to do. And it was to really help people. And I'm not going to go into it because it's her secret at the moment. But she cried and cried. And I cried with her. I was so, so happy to hear that someone, I don't know how old she is, probably 60, 65, something like that, has a big dream. And she's going for it. And she's already got the ideas in her head. And she wants some help with it. She wants people who have connections to governments and things like that. So we talked about that. And we'll keep on talking about that. You know, exactly what is it you would do if you knew you had all that time left? And are you willing to believe that you have that time left? And even if you're not, if you think you've only got 2 years left, why not start something? Why limit yourself? It's so important for us to understand the power that we have within us, the creativity within us. The entire universe is just waiting to hear what it is you want to do. It's just waiting to see that image in your mind, just waiting to work with you on it. You know, to look at that vision that you have in your mind, to see that seed planted, to watch it start to grow and grow and grow, and to nurture it, and to watch for it to materialize. You know, just another immaculate conception. And the world holds its breath in wonder. Go for it, everyone. And so it is. Have a wonderful week. Look forward to seeing you again sometime soon. Many blessings on your life.